Today I'm going to share my experience installing a washer dryer here in my Jayco Pinnacle fifth wheel. Now I'm going to share what I learned in the process along with any regrets, and toward the end of the video I'm going to point out one very important detail that is often neglected and forgotten even by manufacturers when they install a washer and dryer in your RV from the factory. So definitely stay tuned till the end, but these recommendations will apply pretty much to any RV, but definitely a fifth wheel with a front bedroom layout like my 37 MDQS here. And I'm going to actually run a load of laundry while I'm doing the video in the background so you can kind of get an idea of what it's like there. So I've already got my laundry in here. It's just some rags that I'm washing. Of course, I got my soap in here. I just use regular soap. And then on the dial here, just like any washer and dryer, we're going to select our cycle. I'm going to put it on the cotton normal. And then I do want these to be dried as well. And so I'm going to go over here to this dry menu and I'm going to put it on normal, and that is it. Everything else over there is automatic. So I'm going to go ahead and push the start button and we'll get that going, and that'll just kind of run in the background. But there are 4 points that I want to discuss in today's video. The first one is, should you go with a vented or a ventless model if you're looking at a washer dryer combo? And then second, I'm going to talk about why I specifically chose this LG model over the more common Splendide models that you see a lot of times in RVs. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk about what to expect with a washer dryer combo in your RV in general. And then fourth, I'm going to talk about some install consideration. And like I said before, there's one very important detail that's often overlooked by both dealers and RV manufacturers when they install these. So definitely hang around till the end. All right, so first up, vented or ventless. Let me talk a little bit about why I chose a ventless washer dryer combo. And these are of course just my personal opinions. But the first reason is I've always been a little bit reluctant to put a hole in the sidewall of my RV. And you know, if you go with a vented washer dryer combo, then just like your house, when you have a dryer that's vented, you have to have an exhaust pipe going to the outside to vent that hot air. So same deal in an RV. If you have a vented washer dryer, you've got to have an exhaust pipe and a hole, typically about 4 inches, running to the outside of your RV. And so for me, I've just been a little reluctant to do that. You know, the appearance of it, do I really want that to be something I see right outside, you know, at the front cap on the front corner there when you've got a front bedroom floor plan like I have here? And then I think about drafts, you know, outside air kind of leaking in. I mean, there is a flap on those vent covers and some weather stripping, but still in my experience, a lot of times they don't stay put and they kind of want to have a tendency to flap open. And so that's a, you know, pretty sizable hole when you think about the size, the overall square footage of your RV to begin with, to be having a hole like that going to the outside where unconditioned air can leak back into your RV. And then I also think about resale. You know, what if I ever sell my RV and the new owner doesn't want a washer dryer? Well, then they're stuck with that vent out there. There's no way to undo it. And again, folks, these are just my personal opinions, so I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with a vented washer dryer combo, but in the end, I chose this ventless washer dryer, and it was really just a personal preference. But on that note, let me talk a little bit about some of the cons of a ventless washer dryer combo. And the first is, you might know this already, but there is longer dry time associated with a ventless washer dryer combo. So let's say that you've got a vented washer dryer combo and it takes you an hour to dry your clothes. So it might take about double that with a ventless washer dryer combo. So just something to factor in. It does take a little bit longer to dry your clothes. Second, it can generate a good bit of heat, you know, inside and kind of spill over into your RV, because remember, it doesn't have an exhaust like a vented washer dryer. And so a lot of that heat is kind of retained, and you're going to feel that, especially around the actual washer and dryer. And you might even feel it a little bit in this case, the master bedroom, you know, up here in the front bedroom when you're running a load of laundry on the dry cycle there. And then another con is that it does produce water during the dry cycle. So normally with a vented washer dryer combo, you're only going to have water draining during the washing cycle, right? But here with a ventless washer dryer, it's using it kind of like producing condensate essentially. And so it's going to be draining that during the dry cycle as well. Now, I mean, most of the time if you're doing laundry, you're probably going to be hooked up to sewer. But if you're trying to do a load of laundry and you're just on your gray tanks, then that's just something to factor in, that you're going to have some extra water during that dry cycle. Then another con is, some of the cheaper models, the cheaper ventless washer dryer combos, or sometimes they're called condensing models, they don't dry the clothes as well in my experience. You pull the clothes out and they're a little bit damp still, and it maybe takes 5 or 10 minutes kind of laying them out before they're actually fully dry. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on this LG because I've been really impressed. But I will say, I think in general, the cheaper models, they're not going to get the clothes quite as dry as a vented washer dryer combo. Maybe if I lived in, the RV full time and the dry time was really an issue with kids, and you got lots of laundry, then probably I'd do a traditional vented style, or maybe even a separate, stackable washer dryer here. But otherwise, in my opinion, the ventless is really a great option overall. All right, second point, why LG? Why did I specifically choose this LG ventless washer dryer combo, right? Because as you know, in the RV space, most people install a Splendide washer dryer combo, right? I mean, they're more compact, they're very familiar in the RV industry. In fact, if you order a washer dryer combo from a manufacturer in your RV, they're probably going to give you a Splendide model. Or if you go to a dealer and ask for one to be installed after the fact, they're probably going to recommend a Splendide washer dryer combo. And so I'll just say in full transparency, I've never actually owned a Splendide. In my previous RV, and the last one I had, it was under the Equator, the Magic Chef, the Emerson brands there, and I think they're all made by a single company. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I think, in my opinion, again, that they're very similar to the Splendide as far as performance and features. So back to why I chose the LG. Initially my reason was I found a sale price on one of these that made it right about $1,100, and so that's pretty comparable with the price of a Splendide model. And so that was kind of the initial reason of why I opted for the LG. But another one is LG is arguably regarded as one of the top washer dryer makes. A lot of times in Consumer Reports, you find all the LG models are kind of at the top of their ratings there. And then I've owned several of them personally. So over the last 15 years, I've had several that have performed very well. And I had one washer, in fact, that went all the way to 9 years before it had some issues. And that was, using it daily with kids, doing laundry every day, back to back. So I really think, LG arguably is at the top of its game. And so between the familiarity that I already had in my house with them, and then the ratings, of course, I opted for the LG instead of the Splendide. Now, after owning this LG for about 9 months, I can say that it does perform much better than expected, both on the washing cycle and especially on the drying cycle. The clothes come out completely dry, they're not damp. And that's one of the complaints that you're going to read in reviews on the ventless models or the condensing models, is that the clothes come out slightly damp, and then you've got to kind of leave them laying out for about 5 to 10 minutes or so after removing, and then they'll be dry. And that was, by the way, my experience on the last unit that I had in my previous fifth wheel. But I can say that with the LG here, they come out just as dry, in my opinion, on this ventless model compared to a traditional vented model. And so I've been very impressed with it overall. Okay, well, let's shift and talk a little bit about caveats here on this LG. And the biggest one I'll mention is that although this LG is a compact model, just meaning that it's smaller than the full-size units that you put in your house, those are going to be closer to 27 inches across. But even though this is a compact model, it's still going to be in the 23 to 24 inch range. And I don't think they're technically made for RV specifically. I think the market that they've got in mind is probably more like an apartment, somewhere where you need a compact form factor. And so that's really what this is designed for. So you just got to make sure that you can fit this in your RV, because it is bigger than the Splendide models, especially on the depth here. And so if you're planning on getting one like this LG, I mean, definitely check all your measurements, not just here in the cabinet, in the closet where your washer dryer is going to rest, but you're also going to want to check all the measurements running from the outside to the inside, such as your doorways here, such as your stairwells, such as the entry door. You want to make sure that it can clear all those things. Or what about if you have to rotate it once you get it in here at the entry door? Do you have the clearance to do all that? So definitely double check that you do have the room there. You're probably going to have to remove some casing at times. Like here when I brought it in my Pinnacle, I had to actually take off this door jamb here and the casing and everything to clear, and of course the door itself, and that was just to be able to get it through this bedroom door here. And so my last RV I had to do similar things. I had to take doors off and some cabinet doors as well. And so just double check in your unit that you've got the space for it, and be prepared that you're gonna have to take apart your RV a little bit, you know, to clear all those things. And then on that note, I'll just throw in another consideration. You can see the cycle is really getting up to the spin speed here, so you get an idea of what that looks like. But just another consideration, if you're going to do a vented washer dryer combo, double check where the designated vent location is on your model. So typically the manufacturer will put a sticker kind of similar to this one as to where they want you to drill that hole, and usually it's marked because it's between studs and where there's nothing that you would, you know, hit when you drill that hole. But double check that location, because I've seen RVs where the manufacturer marks the vent location, but there's not enough clearance physically here on the side or the back to even get a hose and exhaust pipe up here in the first place. And so if you drill the hole out, you don't have any way to actually physically connect the washer dryer to the hole that you just drilled because there's not enough clearance. So just double check, make sure you've got the room for everything before you go out and buy one and plan to install it. All right, so that's the first big caveat, you know, sizing considerations, but there are a few other things to be aware of. And the first is with the front load model, just like this LG here, they're going to be pretty aggressive when they get to the spin cycle. I think this one goes up to about 1400 RPM. And so that's going to really shake things in your RV, especially during that spin cycle. In fact, on mine, I had to buy these felt adhesive backer strips and put them on all the roller shades here, because what would happen is when your roller shades are down and the spin cycle starts, all of a sudden these metal here at the bottom of the roller shades would start banging into the walls and the window casing, and it sounded just really obnoxious. And so that little felt backer strip you can see right on the end here, and I've got a couple throughout the bottom there, just really helps isolate and keep that from happening. You know, by the time you get your jacks down and everything in the RV, it's not so bad, but you're definitely going to feel it during that spin cycle. And it's no secret that some couples use that to their advantage and multitask. Well, I'm not sure if you can tell in the video, but it's starting to really get up there on the spin cycle now. But let me mention one other con, and this one applies really to any model or brand, and that is the extra weight. You know, for this LG, it's 156 pounds, and that's mostly going to transfer to your pin weight because this is a front bedroom floor plan, and so this is right in the very front of the RV. And so you just need to calculate, do you have enough payload to afford that extra, you know, 150 pounds or so, because that's going to transfer almost directly to your truck. Now, before I move on to install considerations, I'll just mention that I did recently look up and discover that this specific model from LG was discontinued, but they do have a replacement model, and it's I guess a newer, you know, updated version of it. And it's my understanding that it's actually an inch or two shallower, so it's not quite as deep as the one here that's in my RV. And so that's actually good news, because that was really the biggest challenge you can see of getting it to fit how tight I am up to the closet door there. And so that is really good news that the updated model of this LG is not quite as deep. All right, last consideration. So let's talk about some install considerations if you're planning to add a washer dryer combo to your RV. And the first one is, like I said earlier in the video, it's a huge detail and one that's often overlooked, and that is adding a drain pan under the washer dryer. Now, this is code a lot of times in houses depending on your jurisdiction, but I rarely see this in RVs that have a washer dryer. And so, you know, at the very least you want a static drain pan, just meaning one without an actual drain attached, so it's just a pan. And so that's going to help and catch some small leaks, especially if something internally is leaking there. But obviously it's not going to last very long if you've got a major leak. And so what I'd recommend doing is actually plumbing a drain on the drain pan like I've done here, and so that the water actually has somewhere to go. And so in a front bedroom floor plan like mine, plumbing that drain is actually pretty easy. And so let me kind of walk you through those first steps. You can see that I've got a one-piece drain pan here underneath the washer dryer, meaning that it's one piece, the sides are molded to the bottom, and it's all one piece there. Now this one is a true 24-inch drain pan, meaning that the dimensions inside the pan are true 24 inches. And so it's going to be actually a little bit wider on the outside, and you might have to trim it down, as in my case here. You can see along the sides back there, I had to kind of trim off that little lip to get it to fit between the vertical divider there that Jayco had allocated. So that's not a problem. You can just kind of use a multi-oscillating tool to cut that lip off, but I did leave it on the front here so you can see what that looks like, and it's really for strength. But this is a one-piece drain pan, and so highly recommend this. It only goes up about 2 inches here to the lip. And then this one actually has a drain plumbed all the way here on the right side, and I'll throw some pictures of what that looks like. But you might be thinking, well, where do I actually drain this? And in a front bedroom floor plan, it's actually not that hard, because you can see most of them are going to have a chase right here, some kind of step or a bench, and behind this is where all the plumbing is for the washer and dryer. So you're going to find probably a blue and a red pipe and then a sewer pipe that are running in this chase. And so with PVC adapters, you can go out of the drain pan here and then use like a vinyl braided hose, and you can do maybe a 3/4 inch or 1 inch vinyl braided hose, and that way you've got some flex so it's not rigid. But you can just take that drain hose off to the right side there and then follow this chase, and this of course just goes into the dresser underneath this bottom drawer. And then remember, this is the front bedroom, and so right below us here is the king pen, and then the basement storage starts more over there, and the front landing gear are right about here. And so you can then take that drain hose that you've run and actually just drop it right through this floor, and you're going to be right at the front landing gear. And so you can go all the way down the front landing gear to the outside. And so folks, highly recommend incorporating this detail. If you're adding a washer dryer combo to your RV, make sure you've got a drain pan, and ideally one that is plumbed to the outside. Because think about it, the last thing you want to do is have a catastrophic amount of water, you know, from some kind of failure here in the washer dryer, and then have it flood your closet in your front bedroom. I mean, just think about all the components here that are all wood and the damage that that water could do to those components. In fact, if you're watching this and you've had a disaster like that in your RV where something like this flooded, definitely let us know in the comments what that was like. But highly recommend doing this detail with a drain pan. And last, I'll mention just a few other install considerations. One would be to put a wear layer in the drain pan, and I'll throw up a picture of what that looks like. But you know, this drain pan is only so thick, and so imagine with the washer dryer, especially during the spin cycle, kind of like where it is right now, you know, even if it's perfectly level, it's going to be kind of going back and forth on itself ever so slightly, and so over time that could wear down on the drain pan itself. And so when I mention wear layer, I'm talking about adding, you know, a layer of a thicker tape like a Gorilla tape or some kind of duct tape, and just put it where the feet are, the levelers of the washer dryer, where they rest in the drain pan, and that way it's got something to kind of wear down against instead of just the drain pan itself. Next one might seem a little bit obvious, but just make sure that the washer dryer is perfectly level before you set it in place here in the closet. You know, if one of those feet is ever so slightly out of alignment and not level, then when it gets to that spin cycle, that's just going to make everything shake and rattle all the more. And so just make sure that that washer dryer, those leveling feet, are perfectly level before you put it in place. Another little detail I'll mention is you can paint the shroud here, the little plumbing box for the water and drain connections, paint it black so that it kind of blends in, especially if you've got dark wood in your closet. From the factory, most of the time these are just white, and for me it just kind of stood out and became an eyesore. So you can paint all of that before you do the install, and that just kind of conceals it and hides it a little bit more. Last detail I'll mention, if you're concerned about leaks or water damage in your RV, you could buy an inexpensive leak sensor and then just put it next to the washer dryer on the floor there of your closet. And I think this would be especially helpful if maybe you've already installed a washer dryer in your RV and you don't have a drain pan. Then at least you've got something that would alert you audibly if there ever was a leak. All right, final thought. Should you get a washer dryer in your RV? I mean, if you're not full-timing, but you're just camping and vacationing like my family, then obviously it's not a necessity. But it is kind of nice, almost like having a dishwasher. You know, it's nice to have, especially with kids. And I think it's especially helpful, you know, being able to wash and dry while you're away from home. It's a huge pro. And then you never have to use a laundromat. And it's yours. It's yours alone, meaning you're not sharing it with other people. And I'll point out another perk. Again, if your RV is kind of more of a second home and you store it on your property, then if you've got a washer dryer in it, essentially you've got a backup washer dryer. If the one in your house goes out or you just need more capacity once in a while, then you've got this here and it's available for you to use. And again, on the flip side, I'll just mention the size and fit one last time. I mean, before you buy a rig, verify the dimensions, including the full path to the install location for that washer and dryer, because pretty much every fifth wheel and even a lot of travel trailers nowadays, they're going to advertise washer dryer prep, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can install any model, especially like this LG here. So carefully check those measurements to set your expectations, and don't forget about clearance for a dryer vent and pipe if you end up going with a vented model. Last thought, look for sales. You know, sometimes appliances can suddenly get slashed $400 or even $500 if you time it right. You know, maybe it's an outgoing model or just a certain time of the year. And I just remember each time I've shopped for one personally, I noticed that there's a huge range of prices from the various retailers. So I think with some patience, you can snag one for a pretty reasonable price. All right, well, those are the points I wanted to make in today's video, but I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, especially if you can offer some additional feedback on the ventless versus vented models, or maybe you've got some other install tips or considerations, so definitely let us know in the comments below. I will include links to all the different products featured in today's video in the description below, and as always, thanks for watching.